There we are. Nancy, Meerde Boere, evening, fellow Boere. We are live. Sorry for the little bit of the delay. I had to get myself something to eat because I just got home from the gym. So, yeah. For all the viewers pulling in now, thank you, thank you. I'm just going to wait a couple minutes for a few more of you guys to pull in, and then we can begin. In the meanwhile, like, subscribe, share the live. Let's get a couple of people on here this evening, a couple more than usual. All right, can you guys just give me an indication if the sound is good? How's the audio quality sounding? Um, the microphone. See, this is what happens when I leave things to the last minute when prepping for a live. This was just a spontaneous. Yesterday, I decided, oh, let me do a live stream today. Yeah, let me do a live stream because why not? Okay. Um, okay, I can hear myself now over the system. Lekker, welcome, Nancy Meerdeboere to this live stream. We're just gonna have a bit of a chat about the White Cross Monument project. So yeah, I might as well just begin with that. So what's happening with the White Cross Monument project there, with the little walk? Some of you may have seen the interview with Boer Media and heard about that whole thing. So we basically are walking from Pretoria to the White Cross Monument to create a bit of awareness about farm murders and all of that. The whole idea was actually stemmed from another idea. I had another idea with another walk I want to do in December, a walk from Nelspruit to Pretoria to the Voortrekker Monument for Geloftedag. But when I spoke to Francois van der Maver from Bitter Einders about this idea, he said to me, why don't I just walk to the White Cross Monument? So then I figured, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And here we are today. The plans are all coming together, and we're going to walk to the White Cross Monument. And I'm looking forward to this. Actually, it's going to be somewhat of an experience for me personally. I've done a lot of long walks in the hiking in the Drakensberg and stuff like that, but I have never done a walk like this. So this is going to be something new to me. So yeah, see this evening, die man is maar skaars. Mense kom in stadig. Ja, nee. So far, we've just got our last. So far. What the hell? Oh, my phone. So far, we basically have our planning and logistics and everything in order. And we've got our last just quick meeting we're having on Friday to plan the final arrangements. Accommodations and stuff is basically sorted out. We had one of the guys in the Bitter Einders office helping out there, sorting it out. And I still don't know what it's going to be, but we'll see on Friday when we have our meeting. And then we'll know exactly what's happening then. But this is also a special year for me because this is the first time ever that I am going to be at the White Cross Monument. I've never been before. I've been wanting to go for years and years and years. And I just have never been able to get to it until now. And to do it like this, walking from Pretoria. So I got something special I'm going to do now, and I saw one of my subscribers made a comment that sort of goes in line with what I'm going to do, but I haven't yet said exactly what I'm going to do on the walk to the outside world, simply because I don't feel like halfway up my route, um, having people from both sides of the radical field coming in and trying to block me. Because I can almost guarantee you that there will be people that will try to disrupt this route. Because lately, um, the biggest challenges I've faced, um, in fighting for our folk have come from not black, but from white, from wit Afrikaners. Um, Liberal Afrikaners have been the biggest challenge and the biggest pain in my ass, and the ones who are actually trying their damnedest and hardest to destroy what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. And I am just gobsmacked. Like, why are people like that? You know? So to get to the reasoning for the walk. So I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, like, why am I doing this walk? What possessed me to walk like 270 kilometers plus, for our farmers, from one city to another, from one great monument to another. Um, and it's quite simple for me. It's about our culture. It's about where we've been, what we've done. I mean, I always say to everyone, oh, ons voorvaders het kalfoot oor die Drakensberge geloop. En jy bitch en myn oor jou selfoon wat pap is, of jy geen sein het. Gaan bos toe, haal jou skoene uit, gaan loop 'n bietjie in die sand. And I think something that we've become so comfortable in modern life that we've forgotten the struggles of our forefathers. So much so that today, there are so many people that say to me, maar ja, is jy nie bang nie? Just like it, oh, jy's braaf, ek sal dit nooit kan doen nie. Of comments people made. It's either they saying yes like it, you're out of this world, or yes like it, yes an idiot. I still remember some of the comments coming in that people told me when we were having chats about the Groblersdal incident. And then people were saying to me, oh, Neil, I Francois as an idiot. I said, Francois is no idiot. Circumstance placed things like they were. Francois, it fucking ballas. And I think that's what we need these days is we need more men to just stand up. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this whole walk to the White Cross Monument. I don't want anything from this. I don't expect any reward. For me, this is about our folk. It's about our culture. It's about our right to exist in this country. And I'm hoping that with this effort, more people will stand up, roll up their sleeves and say, you know what? Let's build something for ourselves. Because there's a lot of people out there that are chit-chat, want to say a lot. And I see recently, and I didn't really want to say much about it, but Johannes Achenbach from the Vryburger Beweging has had a hell of a lot to say about the White Cross Monument, about Francois, about me, about Tevia, about everyone. But I have never, ever, ever seen that man do anything proactive for our Boervolk. I have never seen Johannes do a single thing to help build and preserve our culture, to help uplift our Boervolk. And I challenge him. I challenge you, Johannes Achenbach. I challenge you to, instead of debating and arguing and telling people they're bad, take that energy and do something, because we all have a role to play. You have a role to play for our Boervolk. I have a role to play for our Boervolk. Francois has a role to play. But the Reinders has a role to play. The White Cross Monument has a role to play. We all have something that we have to do for our folk. No matter our differences. Some of us have different ideas on how things should be done. But the key important thing to remember is our boervolk comes first. We are just men. I am just a man. You are just a man. So that's something we all need to remember. We are only human. Marcus Aurelius, when he was an emperor, had a servant who would walk behind him, whispering the whole time, "You are only a man. You are only a man. You are only a man." The whole time just telling him, "You're only a mortal man. Mortal. He's nothing special." And I think that is an important thing to remember. It doesn't matter what status, what position you have, you are only human. And that's why when we do these projects, when we work for our boervolk, we must have good intentions. Because there are many people that I have met who call themselves activists, so-called activists, who at the end of the day are only in it for money. And you see it by the way they behave. You see it by how they explode with their egos, how they try to just fight with everyone. It's like it's their way or no way. No, my friend, it's not your way. It's God's way. God's way. That's the way. God's way is the way. The way for our folk is God's way. So if we're gonna go anywhere forward, we got to roll up our sleeves. We got to work. You know, this country was built with blood, sweat, tears, and hard labor. Too many people are too lazy to even clean their own fucking gardens. You know? So, ja. Ek wonder waar die mense is vanaand. Very few people are coming to the live this evening, huh? For those of you that are online, if you want to ask questions, I know that there's more people that have been interested to hear a little bit more what my intention are, why I'm doing these projects I do. You know, for me, it's always been from my heart. Like I said earlier, I want nothing from this. It's for our boervolk. We need to wake up. It's like, for those who followed my channel for a while now, will notice that my channel intro is the opener to Delete van Jong Suid-Afrika. And as the lines always go in the song is, in hoor jy die magtige dreuning, waar die veld kom het, die lied van 'n volk se ontwaking. Die lied van 'n volk se ontwaking van Jong Suid-Afrika. A folk's awakening, people's awakening. So with that in mind, met dit in gedagte, moet mense onthou, dis tyd nou om wakker te word aan die realiteit van wat waarlik aangaan in ons land. Ons is alleen in hierdie boot. Die man in die breinpak kom nie. Hy kom nie. Ek glo persoonlik, en ons het 'n gesprek gehad vandag, die man in die breinpak, ek glo hy's nie 'n persoon. Ek glo nie dis 'n persoon. Ek glo die man in die breinpak is 'n idee van hoe 'n mens moet wees, hoe 'n boer met homself gedra. I feel that the man in the brown suit he's an idea of what it is to be a boer. And met dit in gedagte, dink aan jouself. Gedra jy jouself soos 'n goedhartige boer? Gedra jy jouself soos 'n goeie Christen? Want daar is nou baie mense wat nou kom en gaan op sosiale media, en daar's baie mense wat baie wil sê of baie het om te sê, en daar's baie mense wat altyd voortkom en sê, ja, ek weet dit, ek weet dat, ek sal die mense lei, ek. Verstaan nou mooi, dit gaan nie oor jou nie. Dit gaan oor die volk. En as jy dink jy is die man in die breinpak, dan is jy glad nie die man in die breinpak. Want die man in die breinpak sal homself nie beskou as die man in die breinpak. Ons sal dit sien met sy aksies. We will see with his actions and the way he presents himself. Sy gedrag en hoe hy optree vir ons as 'n leier. So dan sal ons weet wie die man in die breinpak is. En die ander ding is, ek sien hoe party van hierdie mense is, hoe party mense weer probeer om heeltemal way te veel rassisties te wees, of way te veel radikaal of liberaal, en dan wil hulle sê, ja, ek is die man in die breinpak. As ek mooi verstaan, sal die man in die breinpak ons boervolk verenig. En hierdie mense wat so radikaal of dink hulle is radikaal en so uitpraat, hulle is die een, hulle doen dit, hulle is besig om ander boere leiers af te knou. Dit is glad nie wat die man in die breinpak sal doen. Hy sal die mense oplig. Hy sal almal verenig onder een. Dit is 'n belangrike ding. It's an important thing. So, back to the White Cross. This year is quite a tough year for the White Cross, as many of you know, Chris Harmse passed away earlier this year. So, the changeover of management and leadership at the White Cross Monument is, made it that it's been a bit challenging for them, but they're coming through. And finances is always an issue. Now, I know we're all falling on hard times, but guys, if you can, support the White Cross Monument. There's a lot of other monuments out there that also struggle in that, and I think it's up to us, vir ons as boere, om ons monumente te bou. It's important. Sorry, I'm basically having breakfast for dinner. Muesli and milk tart yogurt. I'm surprised. It tastes really good. Like, very nice. Maar ja, enige iemand met enige vrae hierso, oor op toekomende projekte en dit. Ek wil, nou dat ons hier is, ek wil eintlik, na ons klaar is met die Witkruis Monument, wil ek aanhou met 'n projek van kulturele vereniging, cultural unity. Ek werk baie naby met Volksboom, met hierdie een, want Volksboom, soos julle weet, is 'n cultural reserve organization, kulturele reservaat. Sorry for my broken Afrikaans. Been jumping between 3 languages today, so it's not easy. So the main idea with what I want to push after the White Cross Monument project is to get out to the youth and to teach them about our Boer history, firstly, teach them about our Boer culture, and just wean out all this westernized behavior, the westernization and that. Like in the countryside, it's easier. Westernization, Western culture, Western customs have not taken root. But in the city and that, you see the way people behave. The Western culture is just so destructive. And I had a conversation the other day with a Zulu about this, and he said to me the Zulu community has the exact same issue, where so many kids want to behave themselves like the American Negro, and they want to behave like Americans and, wear Italian clothing, drive German cars, watch American media, and they absolutely hate it because now they're also losing their culture and tradition. So it's an existential crisis for the whole country, and in fact the whole world, because Western media is a dominance in the world. Americanization of the world. And we look at now, America is probably one of the worst places in the world at the moment, to be honest, politically and ideologically. The influences that they're pushing on the world through their media is absolute garbage. It is the worst. It's worse than, I think it's worse than communism, worse than like Marxism and Leninism. Like 50 years ago, we had the communist crisis. Now we have the woke liberal crisis and Western culture. So, and the funny thing is, when you look at the East, right? Look at Eastern Europe, look at the Balkans, look at the Middle East, look at Asia, Southeast Asia. They did pretty well to preserve their traditions and cultures. But some of them, if you look at countries like Japan, which had a hell of a lot of American influence after the Second World War, yeah, there is a major influence of consumerism. Consumerism is poison, actually. We must return to traditionalism. In traditionalism, we practice subsistence farming, bartering, and we help our common neighbors. In consumerism, it's all about the grind, the dollar, how much money we can make, and then spending it on useless shit we never actually needed in the first place. Instead of buying a million-rand car, why don't you go and buy a plot of land and raise a family? You know, I look at the cost of living today, and then I look at like what people prioritize spending their money on, and then the cost of vehicles. And why are people not going back to the more traditional ways of living? Like, gone are the days of having three generations under one roof. You see it in Eastern countries, and it's a good module, a model of how to live. Actually, I still remember like Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate preach about this, saying we need to live. You need to actually like preserve those family structures and like work together with your brother. Don't compete against your brother. Work with your brother. And we see way too many family feuds in business, and it's actually pretty awful. And even hatred amongst brothers and sisters. Why? Why do we have to hate one another? So, if we return back to subsistence living, where you had a house, like actually, this is traditionally, Boer tradition is having about your 100 hectares of land, plus minus or whatever, your couple of hectares of land, call it 1,000 hectares of land. Having your 100 to 1,000 hectares of land, with your farmhouse, and your farmhouse is big enough for you and your family, and the grandparents live there. And as the family grows, you build in a few more farmhouses on the farmland, but you've got your entire family all living together. And traditionally, if you had sons and they married, then the woman they married would move to their farm. If they had a daughter, the daughter would move to the farm of the husband that she married. That's how the structures worked. And there was subsistence living, subsistence farming. Back in that day, there was no major bulk consumerism. You didn't have the luxuries of a grocery store where you could go and buy your food on a daily basis. You had to work. You had to have livestock. You had to grow your food and stockpile for the winter. You had to rear your cattle, have your chickens, and so on. And we've completely lost touch with these ideologies and this way of living because we viewed Western progress as the way forward, and instead humanity has degressed because today less and less people know how to grow their own food. Less and less people understand the process of obtaining food, what it takes. And now we have handed over control of food supplies to governments and corporations, where beforehand we had it in our own hands with subsistence living. And yeah, that's actually that's part of our Buddha culture that we need to teach our youth. Have your vegetable garden, even if you live. Okay, I can't move my camera now, but I will do a video at some point showcasing my little setup I've got. I live in an apartment, but I've got a little garden set up here to grow food. And I was quite successful in growing chilies. Got some pineapples growing now. Those take quite a while to grow. And I've got some herbs and so on. So there are certain things that throughout the year I don't need to buy from the store because I grow them on my balcony. I've been wanting to expand on what I've got here, but I first have to decide whether I'm re-signing for the lease now in November, this place, or I'm moving out. So I still want to buy actually a small farm, maybe like 5 hectares, 10 hectares, something nice near a river, nice flat. I want to farm olives. That's always been my desire, to farm olives and make olive oil. Something interesting, and I want to try it in the Lowveld. Don't know if it's going to work, but we've got wild olive here, so it should work. So the desire to live on a small holding, that desire to be on the countryside, to be a plaas boer, is reigniting amongst the youth in our country. And I know a lot of young boertjie seuns who, when you ask them what they want to do one day, they might want to be a doctor or engineer, but they want to live on a farm. It's like, nee, ek wil 'n dokter wees in 'n plaas besit. Ek wil 'n ingenieur wees in 'n plaas besit. Everybody wants a farm. And if you think of it, prior to the Boereoorlog, the vast majority of Boere were actually plaasboere, living on farms. We had hundreds of thousands of farmers. Now we've only got I don't know actually what the exact figures are. I must actually check here. Yeah, how many farmers are there in South Africa? We have only 32,000 farmers. There are about 32,000 commercial farmers in South Africa, 12,000 which produce about 80% of the agricultural output. So 32,000 farmers, of which 12,000 are mega boere, and the other, call it 20,000, are your small farmers. Guys like TV Vessels, guys like my uncle, guys like, well, I used to be. And now let's look at the figures. For like 100 years ago. Okay. I'm not really getting the statistics. Yeah. If you search it, then there is it's giving me crop and animal statistics. But in 13th March 1900, Bloemfontein was occupied by the British. Wow. And Pretoria on the 1st of September. We're almost at the 124th anniversary of the British occupation of Pretoria. For some other reason, it's not giving the statistics, but so someone was saying that the vast majority of the population um, in that time were farmers. And so that was a few 100,000. Mm. It's very hard to find exact population statistics because it puts the 1900s at the overall population of the Union being about just under 5 million, but that includes Zulus, Brits, Portuguese, Venda, Sutus, Tswanas, which is not an accurate figure. I think if you look at Boer population, it's vastly different. But long story short, 32,000 farmers today, and we had like 250, 200,000 farmers just 100 years ago. So the figures, it looks bad. And I remember TV Vessels spoke about this on a live with Gulain. Sorry. On a live stream with Gulain Sarfontein. And I remember him saying how the big commercial Boer, so that 12,000 that produces 80% of the food, how the commercial Boer are gobbling up the small farms because the small farms can no longer afford to get by. And one of the other big issues is the environment in the country has become so hostile for small farmers that it is just impossible to get by. I remember when I was farming, the environment was tough. When we wanted assistance, just asking our neighbor to borrow a tractor so we could plow our fields. Okay? Because we had nothing. Okay, we rented a TLB to clear the lands. We had to clear out a bunch of bush and trees and stuff, and manually by hand removed rocks. And then when it came to season to plow and plant, we don't have a planter, we don't have a plow, we don't have a tractor. So we asked the neighbor, said, listen, we will pay to use a tractor. He said no. Eventually, we made a plan, and we plowed by hand. It took us a hell of a long time. Look, we only planted about 5 hectares. But to plant 5 hectares by hand, we were working day and night. The money we would have spent on the tractor, we spent on laborers and tools. We did it the old-fashioned way. And it worked, and we succeeded, and we got through the season. And unfortunately, we had problems with the locals, and our harvest didn't really amount to much. Between the locals and the monkeys and the rabbits and all of that, our fields were decimated. But we managed to pull off enough to feed us for through the year. That was the most important thing, is we had food for ourselves during a time when it was quite hard, because this was during COVID. Then I decided to try my hand at farming. We tried a couple of other things, some exotic stuff like dragon fruit. There's really not much of a local market. It's a very tedious fruit because you have to pollinate it by hand and it blooms at night. So it was hard work. And there I learned how hard it is to be a farmer. And I actually all I desired from school was to be a farmer. And I still said to my parents, no, I want to go work for my uncle on the farm. My mom was like, nah. If I had actually gone and done that, I would have been farming now outside Rustenburg. I would have probably been enjoying that. Bias Boer and Lucerne Boer. That's what my uncle does. He's got cattle in Lucerne. That's what he does that side near Rustenburg. And my grandfather used to have a family farm that side. And it was a citrus farm on the north side of the mountain. He sold that because he wasn't in the mood to deal with all the political problems related to having a farm. So he sold that to one of the bigger farms. I would have personally held on to it, to be honest. I didn't want to. I wanted to farm and in my family. My brother as well. My brother's studying agriculture. So there is a desire amongst the youth to go back into agriculture, to be small farmers, live that lifestyle. Some people are not even worried about earning a profit from farming. They just want to have that lifestyle. And I feel like we're going back to that lifestyle, given how ruinous the towns and cities have become, how unsafe it is in the towns and cities, and just how depressing the towns and cities have become, that people want to get to the countryside. I personally enjoy spending most of my time outdoors and in the countryside, in the bushveld. There's a certain level of peace that you feel when you're out there. And that's also something I mentioned on the interview with Boer Media about the walk from Pretoria to the White Cross Monument. There is like a certain level of peace that I feel I'm going to experience while walking that route. And I'm looking forward to that. Taking a step back from the hustle and bustle and this speeding around and fast-going life, and actually taking in what's happening in the country, like seeing the beauty of the country and realizing that despite all the nonsense we have going on at the moment, we live in a very beautiful country. And I can see why our forefathers decided to settle here, why the Voortrekkers chose this land as our land. And, the Boer have an absolute right to the Free State and the Transvaal. That is our lands. It belongs to us. There are portions of the Transvaal, however, that must be partitioned off to the tribes because of their large populations in certain areas. But Pretoria belongs to us and Bloemfontein belongs to us. Those are our two main cities. The Free State in its entirety belongs to us. There is not an inch of land in the Free State that belongs to any other tribe other than the Boer tribe. And then more than 60% of the Transvaal belongs to us. So that is our lands. It is our country. And one day when there is a Volksstaat that comes to fruition, it will be between the Free State and Transvaal. And I believe it might just incorporate some of the Northern Cape too. You never know. But yeah, very interesting. So I see viewers coming and going. Guys, really, if you have any questions to ask about the White Cross Walk and about the projects we do, there are more things I'll be busy with. Look, after this is, like I said, I want to do a tour of the country, and I want to. I would love to get around just to the different small farming towns and communities, and just meet with our Boer and talk, especially to the youth. I think our youth needs an awakening, an ontwaken. Um, we need to wake up to the realities of what's around us and return back to our culture and our cultural roots. Embrace the Boer tribal culture and ethnic identity. I think that is an important thing, is embracing the Boer ethnic identity that we are. The cultural, ethnic, tribal identity. I like how Kulain has put it. And I think Steve Hofmeyer has also said it like this before. We are the Boer tribe. When you talk of tribes in Africa. And doesn't matter how you look at it. We are a very, very distinct people. There is nowhere else in the world where you will find people like us. Sure, you'll find Boer overseas, but then they're not home. This is our home. This is where the Boer come from. This is where our culture was formed, where our tribe was formed, if you can put it like that. So yeah. This is one of the deadest live streams I've had in a while. Yes, like it. Usually you guys are very open with the questions. Tonight there's nothing going on. Ek wonder. So, praat van cultuur. Talking of culture, actually. I recently saw in the news, Karel Boshoff is now the chairperson of the FRK. Now, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Karel, especially because his brother is in the VF Plus, and there's problems there and that, but and there's also the story of the Boshoff betrayal of the Afrikaner Accord and that. But in our Orthodox Church, there's actually people I know that are personal friends with the Boshoffs, and said to me, look, Karel has good intentions. So I don't really know. I stand pretty neutral on this. I think Karel Boshoff, he's very much a traditionalist and a conservative. Also, do keep in mind that his grandfather is Verwoerd, Hendrik Frederik Verwoerd. So there is that must be remembered. So yeah, it's just another interesting little thing that's happened. I know I've actually know another person who used to be the chairperson of the FRK. He's now an Orthodox priest. So it seems like Jesus Christ has got his hands in the FRK at the moment. And I think they need to clean up, though, because there are a few liberal-minded people that have infiltrated the FRK, and they are not 100%. Hulle is nie 100% suiwer. The FRK still stands as an organization that's there to preserve our culture, but there is an element of people inside of it that might just misuse it. But I think for the moment, they now have a chairperson who I know personally is more a traditionalist and will maintain traditional values there. And also is ortho-curious, as we call it. Karel Boshoff and his son Willem have visited St. Sergio of Radoniš in Midrand now twice, the Russian Orthodox Church. And there are ongoing efforts from some Russian Orthodox peoples to build a chapel in Urania. It's just they don't like the idea of the icons and imagery. Um, but yeah, there's always room for that. And since we all need to be, I think, be tolerant of different forms of Christianity, and just re-embrace the more traditional ways. I think a lot of people have criticized the churches for becoming very liberal, and I also, especially the evangelicals, I do not like. I do not agree with the evangelical church's very liberal stances. I prefer more conservative churches because now you've got some of these evangelical churches where they're like have lesbian priests, pastors. Okay, firstly, traditionally speaking, a woman should never serve as a priest in a church, um, let alone someone who lives a sinful life. Um, Biblically speaking, um, so I have noticed since I moved over to going to an Orthodox church, there are a lot of young Boer men who are becoming Orthodox, who are searching for the old traditional Christian faith. There's also a lot of Boer who've become Catholic. And I feel that that's also having an impact on our future as a folk. Because what I have found is generally 100% of the time, Orthodox Christians and Catholic Christians are conservative. You can't be liberal and a Catholic. You can't be liberal and a Orthodox Christian. It doesn't. It doesn't work. So I think that's having an impact on our identity as Boer, returning to traditional conservative churches, and that have the conservative tendencies, and then us just refinding our identity. And a lot of I really enjoy reading history. I've got my shelf with books and stuff, some military history and philosophy, political history, and some history books about our country. And I think it's important for us to really, in this time, since the school curriculum does not teach us much about history, we need to make our own efforts to teach ourselves, to read books, to learn history, to learn the history of our country, history of our people, of our Boer folk, history of our neighbors, all the peoples around us, and it will just give us a bigger sense of purpose. Because the liberals feel like we just need to give up our freedoms and let everybody else have what we have, because they feel like we stole it. But when you read the history books, it's very different. We didn't steal anything. We negotiated, we bartered, we bought. We came here in peace and obtained these lands peacefully, besides having one or two skirmishes where we had to physically fight when people went back on their agreements, just like this conflict we had with the Zulus. But that, of course, afterwards led to a pact of a lifetime of friendship between the Zulus and the Boer. Something that people actually have forgotten about is that relationship between Boer and Zulu. We are actually, according to that treaty, like in an alliance. We are friends, a lifetime of friendship. And you would have, for those that know South African history, would have known that also prior to 94, regions like Botswana and Zululand refused to join South Africa and refused to join the ANC, and actually went to war with the ANC to maintain their sovereignty. So keep that in mind. If you excluded those people from the fold, the ANC are actually dwindlingly small. If we looked at culture, rather than just black and white, we would see a very different picture in South Africa. We would actually see that those that are the true troublemakers, shit stirrers, and the enemy of us are a small minority. But they hide under this mask of Pan-Africanism, saying that all blacks think alike. All blacks do not think alike, just like all whites do not think alike. Like I said before in my videos, not everybody who speaks Afrikaans is your friend. Nie almal met 'n wit gesiggie is jou vriend. Nie almal wat Afrikaans praat is jou vriend. Remember that. There are pariahs amongst us. But yeah, the long and the short, return to traditional roots. That is my goal with the White Cross Monument Walk, is to wake up. Ons volk moet nou ontwaak. And it's time for a cultural revival, a cultural awakening. Ons moet weer ons boere identiteit in onsself vind en opbou en bou. I think if we continue like that, the future will look bright for us. En ek dink so 20 jaar van nou sal ons 'n sterk boervolk in hierdie land hê. Een wat verenig is onder God, wat saam staan, wat saam werk. Daar sal nie verraaiers wees. Die verraaiers sal almal uitgeroei word. En die tyd kom, ons almal nou gesien wie die verraaiers is. Daai manne wat in parlement sit, daai wit Afrikaner in parlement. Daai is die verraaiers. Dis die mense wat ons in die rug steek. En dis vir ons alleen om op te staan en te doen wat ons moet, om ons boere te beskerm, om ons families te beskerm, om ons huise te beskerm, ons plase te beskerm, ons leefstyl te beskerm, ons kultuur te beskerm, ons tribe te beskerm, die boere tribe. So ja, dink maar so 'n bietjie oor dit. Wel, maar lekker. Ek hoop om 'n hele paar van julle te sien by die Witkruis Monument. Julle is baie welkom om my te benader en kom praat na die hele diens op Sondag. Sondag is die diens, die hoofdiens. Maar al Saterdag, julle is welkom om my te benader, kom praat met my by die Witkruis Monument. Ja, ons moet almal nou saamwerk om ons boerekultuur te bou in hierdie land. Want sonder ons is daar geen boer. En ons is die boere. Ons nasie. Dis in ons bloed. Niemand kan dit weghaal van jou. Dis deel van jou identiteit. So ja. Maar lekker aand julle. Staan op en werk vir God, volk en vaderland. Onthou wie jy is.